Hi everyone, Mick Harrington, your community stakeholder lead at GCM here. Just want to welcome you to another project update webinar. Firstly, obviously, I want to make sure that we acknowledge the Gunai Kurnai people, acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging, and we do pay our respects and recognise their enduring connection to land, waters, culture, and community on the land that encompasses the Fingerboards project area. First up today, we will hear a presentation from Michelle Wood and a project update, the GCM CEO, followed by a demonstration pit update from Loretta Fallor, our project lead in environmental, and then I will take you through an update on what's happening in all things stakeholder engagement. And first up, Michelle Wood, welcome.
Thanks, Mick, and welcome everyone. Hi, everyone. We'll give you a little bit of an update on the last quarter for GCM. So most or many of you may have read about and heard about our mining, rehab and demonstration pit. So that commenced probably 6 weeks ago now, and we've now complete stage one of those works. So the excavation is all done, and we'll be entering stage two shortly. The stage one is, so now if you have a look, and Loretta will take you through this in a minute, you can see the full pit in its scale, and it's a very neat site, and the local team have done an amazing job, Whelans and Riley's, in excavating that and doing the earthworks. So Loretta is going to spend a bit of time taking you through and showing you some imagery of what that looks like and some detail on some of the early work that we've done. So that'll come up next. So that's the first milestone, I think, that's been really important for our EES studies. So the MRDP is a key input into those EES studies, especially rehabilitation. So the purpose of the MRDP early was to respond to the IAC requests and some of the early submissions in the previous process around the desire and need to do rehabilitation trials at full scale, and it's also a condition of our retention licence. So that's the first milestone in the sort of last quarter. The second is EPBC decisions. So this is the federal Biodiversity and Conservation Act. We were assessed under the old or the current regime. There's a new regime that comes in July. The Commonwealth Government found that there are 4 controlling provisions, which means there are 4 aspects that they are particularly interested in from a federal perspective. We're already doing all of those works and technical and environmental studies anyway for the EES, so it doesn't materially change the work that we're undertaking, but the 4 areas are relating to the Ramsar wetlands, the listed threatened species and communities, the listed migratory species, which we're looking at those last 2 already in our ecology studies. The first one, the wetlands, relates to surface water and water acquisition studies, and then nuclear actions, which is the one that sort of gets the most attention when we're talking about EPBC ACTS, which is the radiation impact study, and we're doing a lot of work on that anyway as part of the environmental effects statement process. So with the EPBC and the nuclear action trigger is what they call it, there's been reforms passed to the EPBC Act late last year, as I mentioned, and they talk about radiological exposure, and they will explicitly exclude mineral sands operations, but we're being assessed under this current act. So that's why that decision's gone that way. But like I mentioned, it doesn't change any of the material work that we're doing, and all of this will be disclosed and available as part of our environmental effects statement process anyway. The other updates of note is that GCM and the project was admitted into the Defence Industrial Base Consortium. This is a US government organisation. Membership was granted to GCM. It connects us with US companies mostly, but also international companies who are in part of that defence group. So we're talking there's many groups on the list, but some of the big ones you would already be aware of. Raytheon, there's a couple others, there's many others, so it's about 800, I think, all up. We've welcomed 3 new staff on board, 2 engineers and 1 rehab and restoration lead has come on board, and we've commenced our benefit sharing workshops. So there's been one workshop to date. We've got 4 more coming up against our 4 pillars, and Mick will tell you a bit about that later. We've been out and about at the Austrade Critical Minerals delegation to Japan. We took part in the Women in Mining Awards, which we're really proud to sponsor the Young Women in Victorian Resources Award, and PDAC, which is a big international prospectors and developers conference in Toronto each year. Finally, we've updated and made some changes to our website. We got a little bit of feedback that things were getting difficult to find online, especially as around the library or the resources section. So we've pulled out and continuing to make changes to the navigation. And thank you to everybody who made those comments to us. It does help to get that sort of feedback. And we've also put our live weather data online. So that's we've got 2 weather monitoring stations, so you can see those come through, just directly online, and you can have a look at those. That was also in direct response to some feedback from the community earlier relating to the last weather station location. So I've got 2 locations now, and you can see that just coming straight through onto the website. I'll just give you a bit of update now. We can move on to the next slide about the environmental effects statement process and where we're up to. So not much has changed since our last update in terms of where we are in the environmental assessment process. And just to reiterate here, this little map or graph here that you can see is straight from the Department of Transport and Planning website. So we've basically just taken the steps in the environmental effects statement process and we've mapped where we are. So we're currently working on the draft scoping requirements with the Department of Transport and Planning's Impact Assessment Unit. Once we get those, they'll be exhibited for public comment. So that will be an important stage in the public feedback process. We're also sort of the next step there, preparing impact assessments and undertaking studies. We're obviously undertaking some of that work. And that's where, in many ways, GCM has the knowledge and the learnings from the IAC decision last time. So we can have a look and say, okay, well, more work was needed in one area over the other, and we know that now. And so that work has already progressed. So when we talk about the environmental and technical studies we're doing, that's sort of a merging of those 2 steps, and they're happening in tandem. And then the public you'll get to review firstly the scoping requirements and then later the full studies. We hope to have ask the expert panels for you as well. We've obviously appointed some experts. You've heard about GHD, for example, and others. AECOM they're our lead environmental consultants. So they're looking after all of the different assessment areas, and each of the consultants who are doing the individual studies and reports for us. And we're hoping that we're looking at end of July or maybe early August to have some of those experts available for you to ask questions about the scope of their work. So they won't be finished their studies, but you'll be able to ask them questions and have a chat to them about the individual assessment areas and more of the detail that's available and what we're doing. All right, next slide. This really just explains what I was talking about there, so we can probably move on. But this is all available online, so you can have a look through. It's just that those 2 steps, the scoping of the impact assessment and the preparing of the studies. So next one. These are all the studies that we're currently out in doing around the local area at the moment. You can have a look and see exactly what's happening where via our Facebook page. That's probably the place where we update most frequently and in real time when you might have some baseline monitoring work or people out in the field, particularly around surveying. So those are they're the main areas there. I won't read them out, but you can have a look at them online. And the baseline monitoring, I mentioned weather, air quality and dust, surface water, groundwater, noise and vibration and radiation. And some of these are very relevant for the MRDP inputs as well. All right. Next slide is the MRDP update. So Loretta Falor is our project lead for the mining rehabilitation and demonstration pit. Loretta, I know you've got a beautiful presentation with lots of good graphics and videos, so I'll hand over to you and let you take it from there. And
Thanks,
there'll be
Michelle.
time, at the end for questions on anything I've just said as well.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. I'll now step through an update on the Mining Rehabilitation Demonstration Pit, or the MRDP, as it's known. What we'll see over the next few slides is a timeline of the activities about what we've been demonstrating and what it means for the broader project. The MRDP is a scaled controlled trial that allows us to test excavation, processing and rehabilitation methods under real conditions. And importantly, it allows us to validate environmental controls, monitoring systems and rehabilitation outcomes that will inform the design for the full project. So the key stages of the MRDP, firstly, we need to mention that monitoring and studies that run across all stages of the project, and they are scientific studies and they don't just occur at the single stages. They're underway and will continue throughout various points of the project. And this includes weather, dust, groundwater, soil behaviour monitoring, and they allow us to manage the works both in real time as well as generate further data for the EES. So stage one, which is the excavation stage and ore recovery, is now complete. This is where we first established the pit, we separated the soil layers and demonstrated our excavation methods. This stage has been completed without any environmental incidents, and it sets up sort of the foundations of what comes next. And yeah, as Michelle mentioned, we've had a really good team on site, and well done for Willans and Riley's and all the GCM team who've done a really good job on site. So stage two is, and that's the stage we're at now, is the backfilling stage. So overburden backfill is currently underway. So now we're putting, we've recovered the ore and now we're putting material back into the pit. As a part of this, we'll create a small cell within the overburden that we backfill, and that will be where we backfill our tailings in that pit. Stage three, we'll be doing processing on site, and we have a small processing plant that processes the ore to get our heavy mineral concentrate. And as the material is processed, tailings will then go back into the pit. After that, there'll be a period of time where that tailing is allowed to consolidate and dry. And then once that's completed, we will then move into putting the subsoil back on, followed by the topsoil, and then shaping the final landform. Stage four is the rehabilitation stage. So that's where we will see seeding and vegetation establishment, and then obviously some ongoing monitoring that will occur. And importantly, that's the part where we want to, demonstrate the rehabilitation, how it works and how we'll get a safe and stable landform at the end. So the demonstration pits, not only showing how we extract the material, how the ore is processed, but also how we return it, we rebuild the landform and establish that stable and productive end landform. We can move on to the next slide. So that's stage one, that's an aerial view of that stage, which is now complete. We feel that at this stage we've demonstrated how we can safely remove and manage overburden. We can maintain a controlled and compact work footprint. And as I mentioned, we've operated without any environmental incidents. Stage one is not only just about digging this pit, it's about controlling, showing that we can controlled material handling, separation of our different soil layers and horizons for later rehabilitation, and then also, of course, for establishing those monitoring and trial parameters that are so important to this. We can move on to the, just before we move on, sorry, just a snapshot up there of some of the key metrics on site, so including working hours, our local economic contributions, as well as around the amount of material that we've moved. So, yep, next slide. So this is a bit of a video showing how the pit is operational. Hopefully this isn't too jumpy, but yeah, so it's just showing how the site's evolved from a clear paddock into a functioning demonstration pit. And as we move through the MRDP process, we'll hope to show this closing and then, of course, the final stages of rehabilitation. So this is just showing the truck movement from the bottom of the pit up to the top of the overburden stockpile. Sorry, it's a little bit jumpy.
There's a little bit of a lag, I think, but we'll put the video on our social and on our website straight after so people can have a look at it.
And yeah, that's that area, the sort of a darker grey area around that is the topsoil bund around the edge of the pit. Yeah, it is a little bit jumpy. Yeah, great. We'll move on. Thanks, Michelle. If we can put that up on the website, that'd be great. Okay, so now just I want to take a moment to talk about environmental monitoring and controls in place for the MRDP, what we're doing, what we're monitoring, and some of the early learnings that we're finding. We know certainly early on the community had some concerns around how we control noise and dust, and that was a really key element of the MRDP, that we could demonstrate that we could control noise and dust. So it allows us sort of to test our management approaches. We can monitor how things perform in real conditions. We're not just relying on modelling and testing our assumptions around how things operate in the field, and also to demonstrate that we can meet compliance limits. So that's what we've been doing as a part of the MRDP. So just focusing on air quality. This has clearly been a key focus throughout the works, and we have various controls in place, such as water carts and moisture management. We've hydro-mulched stockpiles, and that allows for surface stabilisation, and obviously progressively backfilling to minimise our exposed areas. We're also actively managing operations based on conditions. So we have a thing called a trigger action response plan in place, which allows us to really implement adaptive management if it's required. So if dust is encountered on site, this sets out the actions we take at various stages. And it can include things like slowing or pausing works during high wind conditions, or other management actions that allow us to undertake further controls. So based on monitoring to date, air quality has remained within expected ranges, and there's been no exceedances. We've had a few instances at our monitoring stations of elevated air quality readings, but when there's been investigated, they've been identified to be attributed to offsite factors. So this is consistent with what we previously have communicated and expected, and it gives us confidence that the controls are working as designed. Other environmental measures, of course, are in place. That includes measures around water management, ecology, cultural heritage, and biosecurity. And these risks, the mitigations, are all well and truly understood prior to setting out. They're included in our approved work plan, and we have various management plans, supporting documents and procedures in place to manage these issues. As far as monitoring, we are doing lots of monitoring on site, and we'll continue to do that throughout the life of the MRDP. There's both baseline monitoring and live monitoring systems. That includes the real-time weather stations, which Michelle mentioned earlier. We'll be putting up on. We have now put up on the site, so people can see those in real time. We've got continuous air and noise monitoring at various locations, and we've got a surface and groundwater monitoring program that will continue through the full duration of the MRDP. And we will be doing monitoring reports that will be available for everyone to see. We feel that monitoring is essential for the EES. We can use the data to help, again, give us some robustness around some of the assumptions that were made. But things like weather, particularly wind and speed direction, it'll help us inform how we operate and how we manage risks. Monitoring allows us to identify trends, to respond in real time at the site, and then, as I said, to validate that our controls are working effectively. Again, this information will be fed into the EES and the technical studies, and we'll be sharing a lot of this information publicly to support transparency. So I'll now hand over to Mick to provide a community engagement update and also tell us a bit more about the tours that we've been doing at the MRDP on site and how they have been progressing to date. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Loretta. I really appreciate it. If we could jump to the next slide, please. So recently, GCM has been hosting visits to the MRDP, and we've hosted 16 visits so far, and we've had nearly 100 attendees. We've had people from obviously our community reference group, made up of people within the community that really want to feed that information into the project, but also Regional Development Victoria, local landholders, businesses, people that perhaps are interested in the potential employment or procurement opportunities that come with the project, and also quite a number of general community members who are just interested to come and see what we're doing. And yeah, people from all the way from strongly supportive to the other end of the scale have been coming out and having a look. And obviously, already those visits are providing some flow and benefits to local businesses, just in things like buses and catering and venues and things like that. So it's been really good to see. Next slide, if we could, please. So just wanted to have a quick chat about some of the things that we're hearing and seeing at the MRDP visits and more broadly in our other engagement sessions. But, it's things like local contractors and local jobs, increasing that pool of highly paid and skilled jobs in the region, but also things like apprenticeships for young people and, for people that are local to the area, and some training pathways to see those people that are in transitioning industries such as native timber, coal, and oil and gas, and some potential for them to move across into mining type roles. Also had people raising the prospect of creating that critical mass for rail freight in the community, allowing other businesses to piggyback onto what GCM would be doing in that space. And then obviously there's the big ones that are raised most commonly in regards to opportunities, which are benefits to businesses locally through GCM spending, but also through employees bringing a bigger spend to the area. Another one is obviously bringing a new industry and a new string to the economic bow of the region. That's raised quite often as well. Now, in these conversations, people do have concerns about the project that they raise too, and some of the common ones that have been raised, particularly at the MRDP visits, are things like potential impact to agriculture and horticulture in the region, potential dust impacts, which Loretta has just spoken to, concerns around if jobs will be local or FIFO, and the one that's been quite often said is the perception of GCM just being Calbar rebranded, and then we've had quite a number of people raise potential visual impacts, particularly from the MRDP, and then I think this is the one that's sort of the most common is how will the water for the project be sourced? That's one that's raised quite commonly as well. Next slide, please. So I won't go through the whole list of what we've been doing since our last webinar, but there's a list up there on the page of the variety of different ways we're engaging with the community, what we're doing in that space, and we'll continue to do that and change things up where we need to make sure that we're out there hearing from people and making sure that your feedback feeds into the project. So over the period since our last webinar, we've had quite a few community engagement events and sessions held. We've had 247 significant interactions. We had quite a few of those, 94 of those at the East Gippsland Field Days, where we spoke to people about some of the potential jobs that would come from the project, and worked quite hard in making sure that people were able to get some relevant information there as well. Next slide, please. Also, in the last little while, we have begun the process of hosting our community benefit sharing workshops. So this is a chance for the local community to come and basically work together with other like-minded people in the community, or other people from other aspects of the community, to bring your thoughts on four key pillars here. Three of the four we're running workshops on. So the first one, we've held like a trial to see how the format worked and to help inform us on some of the benefit sharing workshop process. But the first one in the series will be held on the 1st of July. And then you can see further down the page, we're also hosting one on community vibrancy and livability, and then local employment and workforce development as well. We'll then hold a overarching webinar that covers all three. So for anyone that can't get to those benefit sharing workshops in person, there will certainly be an opportunity for you to interact as well. As it says on the page there, if you want to be a part of that process, please reach out. Either pop onto the website, there is a link there, or email me directly, just on that address down there. I'll be more than happy to register you to attend, and you can come, and your ideas can form part of making sure this project is the absolute best it can be. And that's me.
Thanks, Mick. All right, that's great. And just on some of those opportunities and concerns, a lot of them related to jobs. And I noticed I know one of the benefits workshops. What date was that one again? Is that the 29th? I can't remember. Have a look online. But that's a good opportunity to have your questions answered. We do have an East Gippsland First procurement policy, and that's a good opportunity as well to have a look at some of the jobs guides and the pathways work that we're doing as well in that area. So it's a good opportunity. I'll have a look at the date and come back to you by it in the next question. But we do have some Q&As that people have submitted. So I'll read those out and answer what I can. And otherwise, we've got Loretta online from an MRDP perspective, Mick, obviously. And I think I've asked Stefan as well to dial in. He's the technical director for the project if it gets to that level of engineering. So, all right, the first question is, should everything go to plan regarding the mining and rehabilitation demonstration pit? When is the project most likely to commence in full capacity? So I know the answer to that one. So basically the government, the impact assessment unit and the economic growth statement put out by the Victorian government last year committed EES process to 18 months. So we're basically factoring in that we started that assessment process with them around March when the project was told to go into an EES. So we're looking at sort of October, November next year to get a decision to run that environmental effects statement process and then get a decision back from the minister at that point, or go to the minister for their consideration. So we're looking at, after that, it takes about 2 years to construct. So we're looking to commence operations around 2029, 2030. So construction takes 2 years. So let's say end of next year, we finish the EES process. If we get approval, it's a 2-year construction, and then operations 2029, 2030. So that's what we're basing those numbers on. All right, the next question is the test pit being dug to the base of the valuable ore? I know the answer, but I'll let you answer as well, Loretta, if I don't cover it all off. But yep, the short answer is yes. The demo pit has been excavated to the base of the ore body at the location, which is around 22 metres. And that's the average ore depth across the entire proposed mining area. So that's why it allows us to test and model the results that we would expect across the full larger project. I think I've got that covered, but I might jump to the next. Is that right, Loretta? I've got it all covered there.
No, all good. Perfect,
all
Michelle.
Good?
Yep.
All right. The next question is, we've sort of got two questions relating to tailings. So I might read them both out and then I'll throw to you, Loretta, and that is how many tonnes of tailings will be produced from processing the ore at the test pit? And then the next question is, will the combination of fine and sand tailings going back into the pit be the same as it will be across the mine site? So the first one is how many tonnes of tailings from the at the test pit, and then the second, will the combination of fine and sand tailings going back to the pit be the same as it will be across the larger project? Loretta.
Yes. So approximately 1,100 tonnes of tailings are produced as a part of this. We're obviously limited to the amount of tailings we produce by the amount of ore that we can extract, and we are limited from the amount of ore that we can extract from the footprint that we're working within. So we'll produce between 40 and 60 tonnes of HMC material, which is our concentrate once the ore is processed. And that results in about approximately 1,100 to 1,200 tonnes of tailings. And those tailings are representative of what we'll be producing in the larger project, should it go ahead. So they are representative, and that is what we wanted to do as a part of this, is to demonstrate real conditions and replicate as close as possible what will happen in the larger project. So,
excellent. All right. Thanks, Loretta. This one's another one about what monitoring of the test pit is being done to assess potential leaching into the groundwater.
I'll turn my video back on. Yes, I will.
Yep.
So we are putting tailings back in. We are creating a cell within the overburden in the pit. The tailings will go back in there. We have two forms of levels of monitoring that will occur at the base of those tailings. We have a primary under drainage and a secondary under drainage that will capture any water that comes out of the tailings. So that can be that water is captured, and we've got a monitoring program that we will continue to pump until there is no more water coming out of those tailings, and that will be sent off to a laboratory, and that water will be tested, and that then helps us with our laboratory testing of our tailings, and give us further confidence about what comes out of those tailings and what the quality of that water will be. So certainly that is a key parameter of the monitoring that happens at the MRDP.
Okay, thanks, Loretta. I've got a couple more questions. I'll just bring them up in the chat. The first one is, I'm unable to attend the tour tonight, but wondering if there are plans to host more. Mick, have you got some of the dates there in front of you? That probably is referring to the Lindenow South drop-in session you're hosting tonight, or it may be referring to the MRDP tour that you're hosting next year. Tours you can just register for. I think they're not necessarily, they're sort of more scheduled around people interest rather than dates, but if you've got dates in front of you for the drop-in sessions.
So we've got upcoming MRDP or demo pit visits on both the 23rd and the 30th of June, but we will do more as necessary. So if there's more interest, we will hold more. But also if it's a drop-in session or a pop-up visit you're wanting to come to, we have some on the 8th and the 16th of July, but then into August, and we'll hold them regularly all the way through.
Great. And when's the next drop-in session if somebody can't come along tonight?
The next drop-in session is July 8.
July 8. Okay, great. And if anyone's got any specific questions and they want to ask the team, you can email us
directly. I'm happy to chat or pop on the website if you want to register for an MRDP visit. Absolutely.
Yep, or pop into the office at 50 Forge Creek Road. Yep. All right, next one is got lots of questions today. Very exciting. What processes and fixed plant units are involved in the processing plant? I'm assuming this must be the modular plant at the MRDP. So what processes and fixed plant units are involved in the processing plant? How is the MRDP going to process the ore, and is there a trial process plant going on, which I assume means processing facility? Loretta, do you want to jump in here?
Yep. I'll do this one. So yeah, there is a plant that processes the ore on site, and it's made up of spirals, which is a gravity separation. So water is added to the ore and it comes down the spirals, and that is separated. So it's just a physical process. It's modular. So basically what you see at the MRDP is a very small scale that just would be scaled up. So if we have one spiral bank in the larger project, I don't know the exact number, but it might be 20 spiral banks. So it's exactly the same process. It's a very simple process, and it just works on centrifugal force to separate. So it's a physical separation plant. Only 5% of the ore that's mined actually goes into the heavy mineral concentrate. So the remaining 95% of that, the material, which is primarily sand and clay, is returned to the pit. And that's exactly the same at the MRDP that happens on site. So yeah, the separation is just this gravity separation, and that's exactly what happens in the larger project. Is there anything else you want to add?
No,
Michelle?
I think you said that only around 5% of the ore is recovered and the rest goes back in. Yep. Great. No, that's all. I think that's the last question that we've got. I'm just making my way through them. Have I missed anything? I'm just looking at my team here. No, that's it. Okay. Does anyone want to add anything else into the chat button at the bottom or ask any more questions? I think that's all. I can't see any more questions in the chat. So, but if anyone has any more things that they think about or they would like to ask about the demonstration pit or in general, hold on, I can see. How is the ore going to be dried? Do you know about, I think that might be for you, Loretta. So maybe what happens to the ore after it is processed?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can take that one as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right,
go, Stefan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ore is from the separation plant. The ore goes into bulker bags, which are then allowed to seep through the bulker bags into a containment sump, and a metal water containment sump, and we drain that water and return it back into the process water circuit.
Okay, perfect. I think that answers the question. It was basically from the HMC. So what's the process of drying? I think that answers that question. The questioner was just clarifying. Is there anything you want to add, Stefan, while you've got the microphone, about the processing and the fixed plant units and what we're doing on site for the MRDP?
Yeah, so the fixed plant units are basically just simply there's a front end, there's a trommel, which is just a rotating screen that removes cobbles and oversize from it. It then goes into spirals to separate the heavy mineral from the ore. It's the exact same model that we use in full-scale processing, just less of them. There's a desliming cyclone at the front end of that just prepares the ore that goes into the spirals, and then there's the tailing circuit, which is a small flocculant plant and pumps, and then the concentrate handling and dewatering side of it, which I've just described. So fairly simple, but an exact duplicate of the full scale of the process that we intend to use in the larger scale process, just at a smaller.
And it's a bit of a technical term, really, but it's really separation, not processing per se. The processing is not happening here; it's a separation.
It's
using
separation.
gravity and water.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be clear, by process, it's just a gravity separation plant.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just double check. I think there are a couple more questions coming through. Oh, yep, thank you, Stefan. That's what I'm after. So there you go. Good one. And is pit dewatering a more seasonal activity, and is there any site water conditioning for processing required?
Yeah, so there is no pit dewatering required as such, so it's all dry mining. We're well above the regional water table, so we're not dealing with any ingress of groundwater into the pit. So any dewatering that's required is purely rainfall within the footprint of the pit, and that's what's standard in any mining operation. But there's no ground dewatering required as such.
Okay. All right. I think that's everybody and all the questions. I'll just quickly do a refresh to make sure we've captured them. Yes, that's everybody. Thanks for participating and